Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk, back again with you guys for another show, for another episode of our TGT podcast, our show in which we join you every single week to break down all the latest Arsenal news, of which there is just a tad to discuss in today's show. In the wake of Arsenal's 5-0 defeat to Manchester City and on New Year's Eve, and I'd say deadline day's Eve. It's very much past New Year's Eve, but it feels like it could be a new year of misery for Arsenal fans if this continues. And I've got three massively positive people to help talk us through all of it as well. First of all, it's Mike. How you doing, mate? Are you well?
I've been better. I'm about to break. This club has got me on my knees, and not for any. I don't know what good reasons
they do that.
There's no way
that's anything.
There's no way that was going anywhere nice.
Yeah, no, I'm going to change that.
You could end the sentence by saying Arsenal has got me on my knees. That's fine, and then you went not in any. And what you didn't need to do that.
No, you know. You're a wise man for someone your age, but yeah, I'm a broken man at this point. I really don't know where to go, other than on to two consecutive podcasts where we're going to talk about how broken our club is.
Yes, there's a lot of people doing that, including myself. If you did join us for the Arsenal Lounge earlier on with Mo and Shane and Liv, then please make sure you go and catch up on that. John, absolute pleasure to have you back on, my friend.
Yeah, I kind of shared a lot of the same sentiments that Broken Mike does up there. So. It's good to be back on.
Misplaced innuendo, is that
of course. It would not be a chat with Mike if there wasn't misplaced innuendos. So I'm glad to be here with all you guys. I pointed out earlier I'm wearing the Arsenal Hull City FA Cup shirt that we had, that the Miami Arsenal supporters group made back in the day, and we were so excited when we won that. And little did we know that it was the beginning of the end.
I was going to say, did you wear that in like celebration of the start of the main decline?
I feel like that. It seemed like it was supposed to be the turning point. The trophy drought was over, and I'm sure we'll get into it. It has not been so great ever since then. So
no. And finally, the bastion of positivity himself. It's Drew. How you doing, mate? Are you well?
I'm good, thanks, buddy. Good to be on, even though it's like dire. But yeah,
you would begging to come on this show. You were desperate to be on it.
I certainly was.
And we're going to go mad on a lot of topics for the next 90 minutes or so. So please do make sure you drop a like on the video if you haven't already. Please make sure you go follow those beautiful people as well. And we'll be very, I'm sure, happy to answer. Drew, especially, will be happy to answer all of your questions. And we'll get to some of those towards the end of the podcast in our Q&A section, or as we like to call them, specifically and exclusively, user questions. We'll be looking forward to going to that.
Very exclusive.
Very exclusive. We pay the rights and everything. Anyway, let's go through and as we always do to start off our podcast, get your raw reaction. We'll go in reverse order. Drew, can I have your raw reaction to Arsenal 0, Manchester City 5?
I mean, I don't know if I have one. Do you know what I mean? Like, what am I don't think anyone
already losing it.
I don't think there's anything to say really. It's just other than the fact that Luke at Yama kind of put it best. It's none of us expected. Same thing with Chelsea to go and beat City. It's the manner in which we lost. For me, that's it. And I had a lot of people in the post match saying like, "Oh, well, City decimated everybody. You shouldn't be surprised." It's like, well, I don't care what anybody else does when they play City. They care about what we do when we play City. And yeah, I didn't expect us to win, but I didn't think we were going to lose 5-0 either. And even when we go down a man. There's so many instances, and I tweeted this, there's so many instances in football where sides go down a man and they become even harder to break down. We become easier every time. So that for me, it speaks to the coaching or lack thereof in scenarios like that. And it just kind of I don't know. It's not even much to say, End of the day,
it's going to be a great pod.
No, it's just I'm trying to keep cool because I don't want to rage now and I can just rage at something later, which I'm going to anyway. But one shot, no shots on target. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
what was the shot? I don't remember.
I don't remember. It was in the beginning. Problem.
It was in the beginning.
You're right. Thank you, John. It's just like
we actually looked okay those first.
The first 8 minutes, and then kind of just weird. But standard rules apply. We give up a goal, and everyone, and things just go pear shaped when we go 1-0 down. And yeah, overall, I just kind of feel like we're going to see Watford play City eventually. And I guarantee Watford will have more than one shot. So it's just like at the end of it's inexcusable for me. And I finally got to the point where I was just like, you know what, like And I had that poll I put out, and I thank you guys for voting on it when you did, was what the line was for Arteta if things don't get better, when and if should he be sacked. And for me, it's got to be sooner rather than later. If things don't improve rapidly and over the next 2 matches, it's hard to see where things come back from. And it's okay to admit that the whatever the long-term goal under Arteta was that we were hoping, it's okay to admit it didn't work. But the sooner you admit it and you move on from it, the better, rather than just letting things persist until it becomes so absolutely desperate that we're then panicking again, similar to how we did with Emery. And that's, for me, it's like, if you don't learn your lesson the first time and you keep making the same mistake twice, you kind of almost get what you deserve. So I'll just leave it there for now. But
John.
I mean, it's so weird to even like consider this match as something that you can actually come up with any kind of reasonable reason for why any of it happened. It's like, and people are like, oh, look, we didn't expect, like Drew said, we didn't expect to beat City. We didn't expect to, whatever, fine. But it's not like we're looking at this City defeat in a vacuum. And me and Drew were talking about this before. It is the manner in which you lose to a team that really dictates how you feel about it afterwards. Wolves have been, like you said, putting on some great performances, even though they've lost like some games. Like their fans are going to be looking forward to the season coming, based on just the way that they were playing, even in their loss. If we had lost to Brentford, if we had lost to Chelsea, if we had lost to City, but there were some positives in the performance, other than some under 21, win that we had against. Against West Brom and their under 23 side, like that's the only positive we've had this season, and that goes all the way back to preseason as well, where we didn't really have very many positives. So I'll say this: it's not necessarily the end of the world, but it's starting to look like it.
My world, it's like I'm done.
It's hard to sit back after watching that performance, after watching the last performance, after watching the Brentford performance, after watching the preseason performances, where at the time we're like, look, it's okay, maybe it's just training, they're just trying to get fit, but we haven't seen anything develop, tactically or emotionally from the team. So it's hard to look at this Man City defeat as something that we can actually hang our hats on, anything relevant to take out of it.
Mike, can you save John from where he's going?
I don't want to save John from where he's going. 8-2, 6-0, 5-1 Liverpool. I mean, those losses under Arsene Wenger, it's amazing he lasted another 4, 5, 6 years after some of those losses, but obviously he was still getting 4th place and 3rd place and the occasional FA Cup. This loss was the bottom for how I'm not saying it's going to turn out to be the bottom, because I think we could still go lower than this. But
fascinating.
But it's the point at which you just see everyone running around like headless chickens, having absolutely no idea. And the players that mean the most, the players that are supposed to be the Arteta backing, future-looking, mature, beyond their age folks are starting to be the ones who are getting into verbal rows with Arteta on the sideline, who are getting shouted at, who are getting blamed. The whole thing is just swirling around the toilet bowl now. And had we lost against Manchester City in any sort of respectable way, you could say, well, okay, look at the players who are out. Look at the scenario, the situation, the rough start to the season. But that was a capitulation beyond what I've ever seen before, and it looked incompetent. And to me, I've always hung my hat on, look, the final death knell is when you've lost the dressing room, and I didn't see that happening with Arteta unless we went through the first 10, 15 games of the season with absolute crap performances. But I think it's happening now. And for me, it's unsustainable. So I reached my breaking point. I took a step over that cliff, and one particular moment in that game was my moment. I had my moment with Arsene Wenger, and he went on to win FA Cups after that. But I had my moment where it just seemed clear that there was no turning back. And that moment happened for me in this game. And, so it's if my everyone out shirt still fit, I'd be wearing that right now. But
So, Tom, I don't mean to jump in, but one thing.
But you do mean to jump in because you just jumped in.
I don't mean to interrupt you rudely, but I'm going to. So here's just some stats from that game. First of all, breaking records every week. First time at the bottom of the table. First time at the bottom of the table since 1913. We managed one shot in that game. You guys mentioned it. It's the lowest that we've ever had in Premier League recorded history. 19% possession in that game is also the lowest we've ever had in any Premier League game on record. I think you guys, Mike and Drew, pointed out that Rodri and Gundogan had 4 minutes of possession between them, and those two players between them had more possession than our entire team.
No, the two players combined had 4 more minutes of possession than the entire Arsenal club for the entire game.
For the entire game. We're only the second team in Premier League history to lose the first 3 matches in the season, have a goal differential of -9. The other one was Wolverhampton in 2003 and 4, who finished in the bottom of the table. These keep going on. There's only 2 out of 92 teams in Football League have played 3+ league games this season and are yet to score. Us and Shrewsbury Town. 92 teams. That's it. So, it's against
even Scunthorpe is doing better than we are.
It's against the Premier League champions. It's against the Champions League title holders. It's against Brentford, the mighty Brentford, who is a newly promoted side. But even that, given all of that, it's still appalling. It's still appalling, and it's a record-breaking low for the club. It's hard to spin that positively, other than saying it can only go up from here, which I don't know if that's necessarily true. So we'll find out.
Look, so real fast. So, and I'll so
I'm going to chime in when I've taken.
I can see you're on the edge. It's fine. So I'm gonna piggyback off what John said, and I hate to pull out things like this, and Christ's sake, when Forest Green can score.
I didn't even know, Mike. That was not what I intended at all. I know exactly what you thought.
when Forest Green can score against Brentford and we can't, it kind of sums up matters. And I think everyone would be more willing to accept losing to Chelsea, getting destroyed by City if we got a result against Brentford. Not even with all due respect, I mean, yeah, they're playing good football for a promoted side, and you have to tip your hat. But the fact is obviously we strive to be above Brentford come season's end. So why are we dropping points, right? So that for me, I think when you set the tone of the season, losing to a promoted side like that, even with being out certain people, certain assets, that I think that was it for a lot of people, and I think it's hard to look at the upcoming fixtures and saying, we should be confident. And then we said about it before. We talked about this post Chelsea as well, didn't we? Where how do you look at a match against someone like Norwich and say, we're going to go out and smash Norwich? We should be, but there's no guarantees anymore. No one really knows what to make of that at the minute. And Mike put it best before is that it was just the complete capitulation. And seemingly there's no the fact that there's just seemingly no match plan. And this goes back to what we said before is, we know we're missing some key assets right now, but it's the manager's job to put together a match plan and an 11 that suit to get some kind of result. There are worse teams with worse 11s than what we put out against City that won't lose 5-0, even going down a man, even, you know what I mean? That's the thing.
Isn't that the measure of a manager?
Correct.
If you don't have your best 11, how you get the result?
One out.
Yeah, well, Wenger had a bad 11 for 20 years almost, and he still managed top four every year.
If we're playing against West Brom's under 18 team, you don't have to do much managerial preparation for that, or you have a lot to lose if you don't come out and beat them by a cricket score, but yeah. You pretty much can expect to, but it's in the games where you don't have everything at your disposal, where you see the measure of a man manager, you see the measure of a leader, and we saw negative of that, if that's possible, in this Manchester City game. And it was against a team that he knows how they play. It's about a team that he has more knowledge about than any other team in the entire English football pyramid, including his own, apparently. And he still just had no clue what the personnel he put out there were not well suited to what he needed to do. They clearly didn't know what they were supposed to be doing once they were out there. And there's just, I think almost any Premier League manager with any Premier League experience or even championship experience could have handled that situation better than Arteta. And, this plays right into the hands of the people who have been saying, I told you all along, but so be it, man. Look, my personal therapeutic emotional state is such that I need to be able to try to find a bright path in situations, and at least root for what I want to have happen rather than root for what I think is going to happen when it's not good. But that's why I'm broken now, because I just don't see a path. I don't see anything positive to take out.
No, and real fast, I'm sorry again, Tom, but the issue for me is like, you know what you should be doing. We all can sit here and say, when you go down a man, what the first thing you do is you make yourself more compact, you frustrate them, and then you try to, even if you have to play hit and hope, long balls, direct.
Minimum, you bring on a centre midfielder.
Correct. Right. You don't have to be a seasoned manager to know that that's how you operate things when you go down the man, right? And my issue, and I kept there, like, it's probably the first time I didn't even get angry at what I was watching, because I was sitting there just kind of baffled by it. It's like, despite being down a man, despite being absolutely dominated, despite creating nothing, we still decided to still try to play possession football down a man against one of the most press accelerant and press resistant sides you'll find in Europe. Of course, we only got one shot the whole match because we didn't tweak things. And that goes, again, back to Arteta not being willing to do what it takes to tweak things given your situation. When things change, he doesn't change. And that's the chief complaint about Arsene Wenger in the final years, was that we didn't address things as needed on the pitch when the situation changed, right? That's the big issue for me. The biggest issue now is that it's showing a lot of naivety that he should have looked back and said, well, this has happened before. Why would I do it again? And he was a part of that when it happened. He was literally a player here when that happened at the club. He witnessed it firsthand as a player, and now he's doing it again as a manager. And for me, what else? There's more to say. You know what I mean? Like Mike, I just, at that point, it's what the fuck. Excuse me.
I think he's trying to do what Pep did with City when he first came. Remember, he was really trying to implement the playing from the back, and and everyone was getting on his case because it wasn't working out at first, but he was just stuck to his guns and he did it. And that's what he saw, maybe at City, and how Pep kind of sticks to his tactics and deals with it. That's fine when you have a side as deep and talented as City does.
Correct.
You have the ability to do that. You have the privilege to be able to, make it work with these talented players like De Bruyne and all these incredible playmakers that he had there, as well as a solid back line and a goalkeeper in Ederson who can put the ball on a dime from his net. And, I don't, and I'm 100% in agreement with you, Drew. He's not in that position with Arsenal. It's the opposite right now. He needs to tinker. He needs to figure out what works, and he needs to adapt. And he can't rely on just, browbeating this team into doing it again and again and trying to fit a square, would peg into a round hole, whatever it is.
That's the biggest sign, John, is the fact that you can't be the third game of a new Premier League season and be tinkering. It's unacceptable that is the situation that we find ourselves.
That's what this preseason's for. But we didn't really know what the heck he was doing in preseason. That was one of the things. So, but yeah, I agree. The third game of the season, you should pretty much have a good idea of what you're doing, and to that's where the notion of the opponents that we played comes into play here. That obviously you're playing some difficult opponents. It might not be easy to get everything straight right away. There's no breathing room and especially like Drew pointed out, losing to Brentford was a lot of pressure on Arteta, which is why we said it was extremely important to get a result out of that game, and we didn't at all. So I think that more importantly than Chelsea and City was getting, like Drew said, getting a result of that first game.
Absolutely, it was. But the problem is, John, is that we are seeing the same mistakes that we saw at the end of last season bleed into the new one, whereby we can't see a system. We're seeing
worse problems now.
It's arguably worse.
It's definitely worse.
Yeah, the whole concept of having a talented assistant coach take his first job with a team, you normally see that, and again, this is hindsight that plays into the hands of the haters, but you normally see that for a club where they've exceeded their expectations in large part because, you see this in American sports, you see this in other sports where, the protege comes and coaches, but that's not the protege from a team that has worldly spoils that, where, maybe Arteta's skills came from managing the players that he managed at Man City and not from his own ideas. I mean, I hate the whole narrative about how he just put out cones for Pep, but could it? I think it was in hindsight a very big mistake to entrust him with this club. And
there's two things. One, and you brought up North American sports is different because you can go with like a McVay like St. Louis did, but it's more forgiving if he has a poor first season because there's no relegation. You'll get a first round draft pick out of it that's really high, and you can go again and you can rebuild from there. So that's the first thing. And the second thing is, I mentioned this in the Yama chat that or did I put it into our WhatsApp? I can't remember, but there's a difference between being one of a few authoritative figures on someone's staff and by comparison being the authoritative figure as the manager. And I don't think Arteta is ready for that aspect at a club of this size.
But who does that fall on? That falls on the KSC and the ownership. And
sure, I'm not blaming Arteta for that.
Yeah,
I'm just saying I think he's out of his depth.
No, but it's interesting because I remember, I think you did bring it up in our chat, and what I was saying was the problem. My theory on the problem with KSC, and we can go down that rabbit hole as much as we can, but the problem is that I don't think they know what a good job is supposed to be. You see, with Wenger, it was just kind of like, you deal with it. You're doing a good job. The money's coming in. We're staying above ground. You're getting top four. You're making the Champions League. You're winning some cups here and there. So it was like, whatever. That they have some sense of that being all right, and they know that that's not good enough, or that's good enough. So if we can do that again, but when that doesn't work, when there's some issue that we need to fix, they don't know how to fix that. I don't think, and if you look at the transition that we've had since Wenger left, with Emery coming in and out, with this Raul Sven Mislintat kind of crazy crap that was going on, there hasn't been stability at Arsenal, and then you have COVID, which is another thing, and we can add all these little factors into why this ownership group is not good for these kind of situations. They don't have the control over this club that. And guess what? It was born out of Wenger being so good at what he did for a very long time. They didn't really have to deal with any of that. Wenger kind of ran the show. Now that's gone. They need to figure out what the hell to do to fix this. And I don't think, and Stan's not doing anything. He doesn't give a crap. It's Josh.
No, it's on Josh.
And Josh doesn't know. And Josh is not. I don't think he knows what he's doing.
Josh doesn't have a.
Josh
does not have a. Very, very quickly.
He's probably like, "What? Can someone explain offsides to me?" That's like, Ted Lasso.
He thinks he has a clue because of what he's done with his not other franchises, but with his franchises in the United States. I mean, you could tell. Again, me for the 97,000th time talking about this interview that we had with him in Denver a couple years ago, but you could tell that his mindset was, we're trying to do the same thing. We know it's a little bit different, but we still think the philosophies of hiring young and Moneyball and my great team of people next to me and Unai and Raul and all these people that are the future of Arsenal are going to get us there. And he just doesn't. He has no idea the depth that he's in this sport as an owner. And the fact is, he's too stubborn to really just admit that and say, just use our money for what you need to use it. Just get us back or near to the top. Come on.
So really quick, Javier made a good point. He says, I disagree. Look at KSE and other clubs they own. Nuggets and LA Rams have success. The difference between American sports and this sport is there's parity among the ownership, amongst what you can spend on players. There's salary caps. There's all sorts of things put in place that adds a level playing field, which is what Wenger wanted back in the day, but it doesn't exist in European sport. You have clubs like Chelsea, Man City, PSG, these mega owners, these city states, governments owning clubs. So it's a different world, and I don't think they know how the hell to navigate that. And you're going to need some kind of a plan to come in and develop some system to compete with those. At least get us into the conversation. And
I have a great idea how to get us in the conversation. If they would create like some sort of super league. Where the really big clubs all just went in and there was no relegation, I think we could really have something then.
Oh man,
I mean, fair point.
We got to talk about the bell, by the way.
No, we
why have
don't.
you
No,
said
we
it?
don't.
Oh.
We don't.
Oh, listen, the chat's going, man. I'm like, I've seen
Absolutely not.
I've seen it.
Building,
No.
I'm not going to do this until we talk about the bell.
building on what John just said, it would be what Josh and I. You can look at it and look at the parallels and say this is what Josh has done with the Avalanche, what Josh has done with the Rams and Nuggets. Yeah, sure, all that might be well and good, but the key defining factor is if he's coming into a medium he doesn't understand like he does North American sports, he has a clear, better understanding of North American sports for sure. That's fine. If he wants to try to implement that sort of approach with Arsenal, that isn't inherently wrong. The key element that he's missing is by getting a lieutenant that understands European football, and he does not have that.
Exactly.
That's the problem. So his model isn't de facto the wrong one. He's not giving it a chance to work by having someone who can say, you don't want Raul, you want this guy instead, or you don't go with an inexperienced and you go with person B. That's, for me, the defining factor. And that's where other ownership models that also try to sustainably work. That's why Liverpool's has worked so well, for example,
Yes.
because they got the key member in to make sure that the right decisions are being made. They had a better shot at it working. That's where we fail. So
Someone said Richard Gere. Bulgarian Gooner said Richard Gere.
Very-
Richard Gere is the cure to the problem. Is
No, I
that
think
a-
he was referring
I think
to
that's
the,
I think Gerd Dribble. I got it. Yeah.
yeah. Since you moved to Chicago, I didn't know if you still got jokes or not.
I got it. I
So, a massive thank you to Tom Sabol for your donation. Finally, I can talk about it after these three have stopped going at each other for the last 15 minutes. Says, I spent a lot of time on it for free, so here you go, Tom. And of course, with Mike on, I have to say hi from Tampa and the Gulf Coast Gooners family. Great job with Gooners vs. Cancer. At least Willian has got. And speaking of which, I don't know if you've seen this, but Willian's Instagram post is very interesting. Thank you to Balajin. Who am I getting feedback off? Someone I can hear feedback from. Balaji's sent me a tweet. He's one of our fantastic members. He says, Willian says, I would like to thank Arsenal for the opportunity that they have given me and for the warm welcome received by everybody at the club. Unfortunately, Unfortunately, things on the pitch didn't go the way we had planned and hoped. I received a lot of criticism, especially from some members of the press, that I had come here for financial reasons. I hope with my actions today, being the fact that he's torn up his contract, explain to those people that they now understand that this was not the case. I hope it teaches some people that they should not be so quick to pass judgment and create bad environments to make themselves important, even though I accept that's part of the game. All my career, I've done everything to be the best I can be. I always want to win, and I find it hard to accept not doing so. Unfortunately, it didn't happen for me at Arsenal, and I'm sorry about that. I came to England in 2013, and I've enjoyed every minute of my time here. I want to thank everyone who has helped me along the way to play in this wonderful league that is full of heart and spirit. So there you go. We kind of knew the situation with Willian. I held my hands up and said, look, fair play for Willian tearing up his contract. I'm not going to say anything negative about someone passing up £20 million. I know he's a very wealthy man already. There was the liking of the Chelsea win tweet, which I'm not letting go. That was frankly ridiculous. I think it's just a chapter that we're going to move on from, and I don't really plan on covering it too heavily because there's so much that we need to get through today. Look.
By the way, can I say before we get too far off the topic, Tom Sable, Gulf Coast Gooners, top branch of Arsenal America, and when we first started doing our podcast, the two people, well, three, including Craig on the Gooner Talk, and when you were on with him, the two podcasts I listened to try to figure out what this podcasting thing was all about was this guy, and there was a Gulf Coast Gooners podcast. I don't know what happened to it, and I don't know if you were involved with it, Tom, but there was a podcast which I thought it was pretty funny, and I used to listen to that while at my son's soccer practice. So there's in a way you're kind of responsible for the downfall of Tom's life.
There you go. But thank you, Tom, for the donation. Thank you, Sam, as well. This is a good crew here. Smash a like or get on your bike. Thank you ever so much for the clear instructions to the chat box. Please do make sure if you haven't already, drop a like. Now, I want to discuss something. It does kind of link, thankfully, as a lot of our chat box will be thankful to a certain tweet that's gone on. What I will say, and while we've got, a certain rodent ITK in the building today, in terms of if you know information, usually you say it as it is, and you don't tend to leave things as vague as some choose to. In terms of Edu's position, right? this is a real crux of a conversation that I wanted to have with you. We had a big conversation about it in our WhatsApp group today, and I was getting a little bit annoyed because we were leaving such good content in a private chat box and not for the podcast. But we're going to talk about it now. Look, I can't work out for the life of me whether or not he's doing a bad, good, okay. I can't evaluate his job without coming up with different lines of positives and negatives. From my perspective, I look at this club's main issues as currently, obviously, the main one being the ownership, as I think most of us would agree. That is the number one issue with Arsenal Football Club. And number two is the manager currently, and the decision makings and the coaching and the lack of kind of idea and direction and the lack of progression that we're doing. That's everything on the pitch is to do with him. Now, Edu, I'm really conflicted about, because some decisions that are made by Edu, like spending money on players that we've needed, has improved our recruitment. I think our recruitment over the last or during his tenure has been an improvement on what went for the 10 years prior to that. However, there has been some issues like Willian, like Ronison, like this Nketiah thing that's coming around today, not accepting 10 to 12 million pounds for a player in the last year of his deal that's barely going to play, not going to play, and now we're going to let go for free after arguably playing no football in the next year. Things like that I can't get my head around. Giving Granit Xhaka a new contract, I tried to justify it at the time. I definitely tried too hard, and I was definitely wrong about it. But it's just so many things, and I know that this is going to spark another 26-ish minutes discussion between the three of you. So I'm not even going to point to someone. Someone tell me, is Edu doing a good job? If so, why? If not, why? Oh, great. None of you.
Well, hold on. Well, I don't know. What does a good job look like?
That's what I'm saying.
It's the hard.
Liverpool, Leicester.
The difficulty is that we're not. Whatever plan is. Let's just assume, for argument's sake, that Edu has a plan and that he has enacted it from a strategic recruitment standpoint to perfection. This is exactly what he wanted. It was logical. It made sense. He identified these players that we needed, and let's just say, for argument's sake, we got them all. That's just one step of this. What we see on the field is not the result of a cohesive plan that I can say, and I hope not, because if this is what the plan was, then I think everyone needs to lose their job over this. So,
how can we plan? How can we plan around a recruitment strategy when there are so many personal issues that seem to keep getting in the way? I mean, the Mainsley situation has nothing to do with Edu. It has everything to do with Mikel Arteta and Mainsley.
Saliba's situation has something to do with Edu, I would
That's
argue. The way that was handled, the way they failed to get him a loan deal, the way they kind of
brought in Willian,
right? But what's the reason that he needed to go on loan? It's the relationship.
Arteta weren't going to play him. Yeah.
Well, it's the relationship that apparently never existed between him and Arteta. Again, I'm not placing blame all on Arteta, because I think Saliba holds some of the blame in that situation. I think Mainsley holds some of the blame in his situation. I think Guendouzi holds a lot of the blame in his situation. But those aren't necessarily Edu things. Those are, the issues with Ozil. I mean, they're all kind of the relationship, and Arteta seems to really either you're all in with him or you're all out with him. Yeah. And when you're all in with him, like Granit Xhaka, you can get a stupid red card and get patted on the ass on your way out, which was my moment that I was referring to. That was it.
Well, do you remember when Edu came in, though? Because when Edu came in, I remember there being specific lines of dialogue that said Edu's job is to drive the philosophy of where this club is going. The way
what does that mean? That's bullshit. It's like
that's something that Bell would say.
Yeah, what does that mean? Like the philosophy of the club. What is our philosophy?
The issue is there is no philosophy, and that's the first problem.
Exactly.
And I think, and we've talked about this before on other shows in the group, like on Twitter, like. Multiple people have made reference to it, is no one has a clue on how to define the club right now. And if we can't say that, then by default, Edu's failed at his job. Given what Tom just said, given the initial dialogue behind his remit, he's already failed in this task. Irrespective of what's going on with transfers or how we've handled Guendouzi and Saliba, all that kind of stuff. For base value, Edu has already failed.
Because man makes a mean steak, though.
Clearly he does. Multiple. And sometimes they levitate without any knowledge.
Part of me feels like, because it was clearly the club's decision from Vinay and Josh's point of view to promote Arteta to manager. Now, when they did that, Edu, from what I understand, was no longer kind of a superior to Arteta at that point. They were basically on a level playing field. As head coach, Edu was kind of, he held quite a bit of, clout over Arteta. But as soon as they promoted Arteta to manager, that playing field completely leveled. So that you remember, like, when decisions were made around players that we would sign, and Edu would turn around and be like, no, we're not going for him. We're going to go for this person, and so on. When Arteta was promoted, that power struggle basically started to swing in the Spaniards' favour. At the end of that 2020 window, after he'd been promoted, we heard these stories about Partey basically being Edu's kind of prerogative. And that seemed to be the final moment where Edu had more control, despite that being just after Arteta being promoted. You go to January, we get, obviously, Martin Ødegaard comes in on loan, and Edu was given a lot of credit for sorting that deal out. We go to the end of the season, Arteta loves Ødegaard. There are reports and stories out there he's practically obsessed with the idea of Ødegaard, and that he was always the number 10 option for us that he wanted throughout the summer. I don't know where these James Maddison links necessarily came, whether they were invented by who, or whether, and then obviously certain members of the media have picked up on that and decided to run with it as well. But if that did happen, and part of me does trust that there was certainly interest from Arsenal in that story, it felt like that was certainly going through intermediaries, which would have been heavily Edu focused, nothing more so to do with Arteta. If it was the talks that were going on, it was much more Edu that was after Maddison, and that Arteta was much more keen on Arsenal going for, if he ever became available again, going for Martin Ødegaard. So do you think that the decision to promote Arteta to manager has undermined Edu's position as technical director in any way and made that job much more difficult?
But what would he be? What is he doing now, though? So, assume we know what he did before. It was Delaney. Yeah. Well, what is he doing now, though? What do we know? Do we actually have an idea?
He's basically not. I was going to say he's the right hand man to Arteta. Like, if Arteta wants a player, it's kind of.
So he's like the Steve Bold. What is he doing?
Then what is Dick Garlick doing? And what is he?
Dick Garlick's meant to be the guy to negotiate the contracts.
So he's the guy that was the opposite of Dick Law that you named many years ago.
The reason I asked,
we're now not able to say on the podcast.
No, we're not. No, we're definitely not. I know exactly. I remember that was classic.
The reason I asked that question is because I think it's important to consider that, if we can't even define exactly what these people are doing for this club, then surely, how the hell are we supposed to figure out what our issues are on this field? How are we as fans supposed to sit back and kind of recognize what we need to do and where we need to go?
You won't know. It's all right.
No, all right. He just put something in the private chat. I have no idea.
It's for me. Don't worry.
All right. So yeah, ultimately, forget it. Whatever. I'm trying to have a conversation here. You guys are laughing.
I'm listening to you. Sorry, Mike's
distracted me. It's fine. I'm just saying
is he undermined the position by promoting Arteta? Has it undermined Edu's position?
I don't think we even know what Edu's position is anymore. So by definition, yes.
And what was the point of doing that?
And so is he like an assistant coach? Is he
you tell me, John? What do you think from what you've seen of Edu in the last year? What do you think Edu's job is? What is he?
I think Edu's job is to have the contacts that and to go out and to kind of like what Sven was doing at the time, possibly, or what Raul was doing rather at the time. And I think that now that's fallen mostly to Edu. And he's kind of the suave Arsenal DNA guy, that goes with his nice suit and tries to impress the player and his family about why they should come to Arsenal, what it means to be an Arsenal player, and what the plan is and the future holds. And I think he's a salesman for us now. And I don't know, though. That's the thing. That's my guess. We don't have any clarity. And part of the problem is that we don't have clarity. And how are you going to fix something when it's unclear exactly what's going on? If they might have an idea and they might figure it out, but based on what we're seeing, it doesn't look like it's working out too well. So obviously it's not, whatever.
No, look, it's important because to know if he's doing a good job, we need to know what his job is. Like,
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, and it is difficult, and I think Arteta being promoted to manager has confused and blurred those lines between who's responsible for what. And these rumors.
When did that happen? It was right after the
right at the
FA
start
Cup.
of 2020. It was right at the beginning of
Yeah.
2020.
Basically in the trail of the FA Cup and all the positivity and everything, they're like,
the FA Cup.
His
we're going
job
to
is
give this
with
guy Wenger powers.
And it was another really amateur move by the club to look at an inexperienced coach after 6 months in charge to promote him to the same position held by previously Arsene Wenger. Unai Emery was never a manager at Arsenal. Unai Emery was always head coach. And yet after 6 months in the job, in which, we, in the league, struggled. We finished, 8th that year?
Yes.
And we played a few very good, if you say very good performances, if it weren't for a last-minute strike by Danny Ceballos, we never would have got past Sheffield United to get to that FA Cup.
That's true.
Michael just pointed out exactly what I was getting to earlier. He said, "How can we be successful on the pitch when the structure keeps changing?" And I alluded to earlier. You had this power, this vacuum that existed when Wenger left. We appointed Emery and left, and Emery left at the same time. We had Sven Mislintat and Raul and what's his name? What is he, vice president, whatever he is now. Vinay, which is another one, by the way, and now Edu and Arteta, who was a coach, then he was a manager, and now they're on the same level. It's like there's no stability in the back room. How do you expect anything? It's too many cooks in the kitchen, and nobody knows how to cook. That's exactly what's happening right now, I feel, and that's what it seems like is exactly what you see on the pitch.
It's look, the moment the club, and I said this earlier on the lounge, and I said that to be an Arsenal fan right now is horrible. It is genuinely horrible being an Arsenal fan. We are not in a good place amongst our rivals. We're not in a good place amongst each other. We're the butt of every single joke in the league. And to be honest, I think that is leading to some really silly opinions being created by a lot of people about other Arsenal fans or other Arsenal channels or whatever. At the end of the day, we all know what the main crux of the issue at Arsenal is, and it's those that are in charge and those that are making the decisions from the top, and that those decisions are clearly wrong. I am worried if these rumours do turn out to be true and someone is going, and let's say, for instance, that someone is Edu that gets sacked. I don't think that's a just decision. And I don't mean that in the sense of I don't think he deserves to go. There's a strong argument to say he might deserve to go. But for him to go before Arteta and for them to make the choice, they assess what's happening at the club and to say that Edu is responsible for the results on the pitch over Arteta right now and to get rid of him is a massive call. That's a huge call if they were to get rid of Arteta.
You're then consolidating even more power under Arteta in the style of Arsene Wenger.
Exactly. And
which is maybe what they're trying to do. Remember, like everything was golden under him.
What is the style? I don't know what it is.
So remember what I just said before, and listen. That's why I've been quiet because I've been digesting and
it's
trying.
Like when you're playing Fast and Furious and your NOS bar's increasing.
Because you would never play video games whilst doing a podcast.
Never. No.
Oh man, it's for me. I was kind of just stewing over it. And I just realized that it goes back to what we were kind of talking about before. It's if Josh's idea, because we've all agreed that Stan's absentee, fine. We all know Josh is the de facto figurehead, fine. But if Josh's idea of how to take this club forward is to try to institute a structure that works for all the other franchises under his stewardship, it would make sense that what he's doing is he would rather remove Edu and keep the young manager that he's handpicked to replace him and then have it just be Arteta and him. That would make sense. That looks a lot closer to, a North American franchise than having someone in Edu's position. The only thing you're missing then is like a general manager, which he could be acting general manager, because for years a lot of North American franchises have their owner is the GM as well. You have that a lot. So it would not surprise me if it's going to be Josh and then Arteta and then there's no technical director. I don't know.
Do we know the dynamic between Arteta and Edu? Do we?
No, that's what I'm trying to work out. We don't.
No, not in terms of what their jobs are, but
are they
for
friends?
For some reason, I in my mind they kind of were. They were on the same page and they're working together. But I'm not. Do we know that? Because if that's not the case, that could explain a lot of the kind of bizarre decisions that are being made.
Funny we could get an exclusive look into an in-season through like.
Yeah, if they only had like a camera crew behind there.
I'm now looking forward to watching that. Like I was dreading it because if things didn't go well for us, I didn't want to watch it. But now that things are going as even worse than I thought they could have, now I actually want to watch it. Because
what the is going on?
I can't feel any worse about it.
That's the thing, is that we don't know if it will, because we know that Arsenal have editorial say.
Can you imagine it comes out and it's like it paints like a just completely bizarre. It's like a bizarro picture. We're winning the league. It's like a North Korean Amazon.com version.
You have like Aubameyang like crip walking in the dressing room and Lambo shopping. Look,
they'll just like brutally Photoshop stuff to make it look like everyone's happy. They'll put like a smile on somebody's face.
We're like holding an FA Cup even though we didn't win it or something.
Arteta's delivering his tactics and they just bleep all of it out.
Or like they cut to it and it clearly is just like him talking to an empty room and then pans to a shot of the room where everyone's kind of like, yeah, I get it.
He's doing his tactic, and then it goes to the whole team dancing after they won the FA Cup, and then make it look like that's how they're receiving the tactics.
Anyway, look, we've got 15 minutes left, and then we're going to go through your user questions and get as many of those as we feasibly can into our time that's got left as Drew attacks the chat box.
No. I just it's funny though. We didn't really ever actually answer the question overall.
Is there an answer for a question?
No, I don't think, and that's the thing. I don't think there is, but this will kind of circle. So I wanted to touch something real fast. Everyone's saying, "Oh, go get Overmars, bring him in," and I'm just sitting there, just like. And I just shake my head because everyone just looks at the fact that it's great that he's iconic for the club. So by default, you hope he understands a bit better. We thought that about Edu, and look how that's potentially worked out in the first place. But that's irrespective of that. There's a real difference about Overmars doing his job at an institution like Ajax that have been run the exact same way for the last 60 plus years, that are incredibly well run, that are the top club in the Netherlands, that have top billing on everything, that at worst case scenario finish second at any given season, but really they're supposed to be winning the league every year. It's a very different job running that club than it is running an Arsenal that has no bounded institution that he can fall back on to say, this is what we are, and we've been this way for however many years, now I know what I have to do. It's not the same job. Neither it is for any other manager coming in.
Different is better. That's the crux of it.
I don't think that they can fix it. I think that I don't think this ownership group has the capability to fix this.
No, they don't. And it's the point of saying that you can change as many pieces of the machine as you like. But if the plug's pulled out, it's not going to work.
Right.
And that's the issue with it right now, is that, Drew, what you're saying about Overmars is spot on. It's the same thing about Rangnick and what he did at RB Leipzig. It's a different it's a different process. Let's use that word. But the point of the fact is that I don't think Overmars coming into Arsenal is ever going to be able to succeed with those that are above him and those that are enabling him. And it's ridiculous. And so, at what point do you then have that same vision of, say, Edu, which is what we've talked about ages, is that I don't know whether the criticism of Edu, which is a person who is shrouded in a lot more mystery than, say, Arteta. Like, every week we see the workings of Arteta's outcomes because it happens on the pitch, his selection, his style, the results on the pitch. Edu is different because you don't know what's necessarily going on as much with him other than the signings that we make. And even then, that's very much still leaning more towards Arteta now.
And remember that Edu was brought in on top of still having Raul there. Raul. I mean, he wasn't meant to replace Raul.
He was kind of the Sven replacement, really. Wasn't he?
In a way, more than anything else, but definitely not from a scouting background, other than his contacts in South America that were pointed to. So, I mean, there was even more of a clutter. Then there was this cull, and we're right back where we began. And
then also Ajax don't scout through a system like Stat DNA, which we're clearly keeping. So that at no aspect of what we are at the minute fits anybody you're going to throw out there right now.
Are we keeping that? Because we just got the lady who was in charge of it at the club.
Yeah, we are still keeping it.
We're still keeping it.
No, what I'm just saying is we just let her go. So that's another. The lady in charge of it is gone. So
here's the thing. As of last week, we were keeping it. Now we might not be. I don't know. You don't know. None of us know. So That's half the problem.
But that's the thing. Yes. And like, okay, let's say we are keeping it. We don't even know how we're going to be using it from going forward. Clearly, the way it's been used in this plan that they have is not the right way because they fired the person in charge of it. So,
Edu said, didn't he? He wants to go down a stat-driven approach. We've just hired 3 scouts this summer. We've been doing
a stat-driven approach.
Sacking 50 of them.
Yeah, it's like, oh man,
this club in itself is a contradiction of it. Like it just continuously contradicts.
Maybe that's the plan. Maybe they just want to get everyone so desensitized and like confused over what's going on that like any positive is like, wow, how did this happen?
This is great. Working with me because at this point, I don't care anymore. Like, I mean, it's not that I don't care anymore. I care a lot, but
you're numb. You're absolutely numb.
I am numb. I see. I didn't feel that. I'm completely.
I missed that. Can you do it again?
You really hit yourself hard.
He smacked himself.
I heard it. Literally, the mic picked it up.
My son one time after a particularly good goal that he scored in youth football, like went like this, and then like he actually went down to his knees because he was in so much pain from hitting himself.
Yeah, the adrenaline wore off. That's what happens.
Exactly. So well, the adrenaline has worn off with regards to trying to figure this out, and as long as we can talk about Overmars, we can talk about Ragnick, we can talk about Conte, we could talk. I don't know. Drew doesn't want to talk about Conte, but
please, Christ, no. Like
I'll talk to you about Conte if you like.
No,
but Tom's right. None of that stuff in and of itself is going to fix the problem, as long as the Cronkies are here. And so, good friends like Russ and others are who like to point to the ownership more than the coaching and more than the management and the board. Yeah, you're right. Except that's not going to happen. No, we can't. It doesn't matter. Sorry that I don't believe that if we pay for tickets and don't show up, that it's gonna have the manager sell.
It's not.
Sorry, I don't believe that protest. I'm not telling you not to protest, but I don't believe it's gonna move the needle on Josh Kroenke's desire to sell the club at all. So unless they have a major and maybe this lawsuit in St. Louis will have an impact and move the needle, but until they're gone, it doesn't matter who we bring in. Maybe on the short term to stop the bleeding. I mean, I'm all for it. Change the coach, change the director of football, do whatever we have to do, because what we're doing right now isn't working. But don't get your hopes up that there's going to be some sort of instant solution. And that goes for buying big players too. That goes for buying. I mean, we could buy Mbappe and Haaland and we'd still finish 9th with the way that the club is running.
And I've said that time after time. It doesn't matter if you put Lewandowski or Haaland in the striker position. We are not creating.
We ruin them instead of them helping us.
Exactly. They will not. Whoever is in the striker position will not score enough goals. And even if we add the fabled right back and centre midfielder, I think we need. We may improve some results, but we're not going to progress. I don't think too much unless we genuinely have a way that we want to play that's shown. Because if we're real, most of the team is now Arteta's team. Like most of it is signings made under his tenure and Edu's tenure. So it's no longer that. It's.
That starting 11 had 8 players.
Except for everybody that started against City.
He picked those, John. He had Nuno Tavares on the bench. He had Lokonga on the bench. He had
I know what you're saying. I'm just messing with you.
Great.
Hey, you guys did it before, so I'm just returning it to you.
Anyway, look, we're only a few minutes away from you guys being able to ask your questions in the chat box. So if you do have them, please do use the capital Q in the chat, and we'll answer as many as we can in the last half an hour. Before we do get to those, we have a little bit of a matter of transfer deadline day to talk about tomorrow. Believe it or not, there's more that we have to discuss. We are led to believe that pretty much right now the chances of Arsenal signing someone are pretty slim, and it would take a big twist, a Partey-esque twist on the last day of the season, of the deadline. Or it feels like Arsenal season could end if we don't do anything tomorrow. But I'll go through each of you. I want to hear your expectations, ins and outs. Drew, we'll start with you, mate. What's your not what you want to happen? What's the expectation of the club tomorrow?
Gotta go, guys. Sorry.
I mean, really, it's hard to tell because we don't even know what's going on with, say, Maitland-Niles' future. That alone gives me little hope about any movement, but we've been known to make deadline day deals before, so I half expect something to happen. I just don't know if it's going to be what we want to happen. At the bare minimum, I expect us to get a center midfielder. If we don't, you may as well just liquidate the club because it's the gross mismanagement of like the absolute highest order. If we don't get a midfielder by tomorrow evening,
you moan about hyperbole.
it's just frustrating. But I expect
so
a midfielder
if you don't buy a midfielder,
if we don't buy a midfielder, if we don't buy,
not just liquidation, like literally raise the Emirates to the ground.
I think so. It's
covered
like,
in acid, just the stadium.
because what it shows is just no.
Just dunk Gunnersaurus and
Liquidize the Emirates Stadium.
Yes.
That's what you want to do.
Because it shows that there's no plan for anything at any aspect at any point. Because we'd be looking at from early January to mid-February having 2 midfielders if none of them get injured during AFCON. You know what I mean? Like It's just like, so we need a midfielder. I don't think we're going to do a right back because we have 86 of them already and we can't sell any of them apparently. So I think that's dead. I think you need a midfielder or 2, and I hope we at least get 1. That's kind of my base level requirement for tomorrow. So,
John, expectations for tomorrow.
Well, remember I told you I didn't think Bellerin was going anywhere, and that's looking more and more like the case. I just don't, I think that we would, like Drew said, we need a center midfielder. We had for a while. We bought a defender, even though we had Saliba on loan, which is fine. I think I rate Ben White. I think he's good, but I think we need a midfielder. I think we need a right back because Cedric and Chambers ain't it as much as people want to think that they are. I think that we need even potentially, we got, in Tavares, we have a backup left back, arguably. But then again, do we even know how Arteta is going to want to play going forward? Are we playing with a 3 at the back? It looked like we did at some point. Are we going to play with 4 at the back? I think that depends on the kind of setup that we're dealing with here. Striker situation, what's going on there? Lacazette doesn't look like he's going anywhere, which is, by the way, talking about Edu and the ownership, they were, they were saying, hey, we're not going to let these players go for free anymore. That we're going to, when they have 2 years on the whatever. Point is, I don't have expectations to answer your question. There are none. I don't think we're going to make the right moves. We need to send a midfielder. We need a right back. We're not going to get it. I think that the team sheet, pretty much as we saw it, minus a couple that might leave, are going to be what we're working with this summer, rather in the fall. So until January, I am afraid that's what we got.
Mike?
I'll answer the question you asked, which is what do I actually think will happen tomorrow?
I just answered that.
No, you went through the whole thing.
I went through a whole thing, but I answered it ultimately. So if you want to answer it too, go for it.
We're going to make 3 loan deals that do absolutely nothing for us, such as sending Mainsley to Everton on a loan with no option to buy, no requirement to buy, or no,
even with an option to buy, is stupid.
No requirement that they improve him at all. At least build in a requirement that they improve him. But I mean, no, we're gonna end up just shitting our pants and making 3 or 4 loan moves for players that should have been sold, but we couldn't get rid of. Nketiah will probably go back to Leeds, even though they've just signed Daniel James for £30 million. And we're all just, those idiots will be standing outside the Emirates making crude gestures behind the Sky Sports guy, and that'll be the highlight of our day tomorrow.
I just had a vision of like an office style documentary at the end of the season with this all or nothing, where when
can you imagine if they
go into the bathroom, they stand outside the bathroom and you can hear what's going on. Like you're just going to be Arteta on a cell phone, like crying.
I just want the first episode to open with the Office theme music, like
the Office theme song playing. That's what's going to happen.
Oh, mate, it is going to be such an interesting watch. I can't wait. It's going to be great. Anyway.
Edu is Toby, Fraser said.
Everyone is Toby.
Yeah, mate, so many Tobys. In the chat box, let's go through all of them. We'll say all of them, but we'll go through as many as we can.
Are 90% of them about the Bells tweet?
Yes, they are. I'm just sifting through them now. Drew Cripps says, do you think that Ramsdale, Maitland-Niles, Saliba, Gabriel and Tavares could work as a sturdy back 4?
No, I don't really think so at all. I think
no.
For all the positives he showed when he was a right back, I think Maitland-Niles is a better right wing back than a right back. I think it's very different seeing him in the back 2 than the back 4. But Tavares, I think, shows promise. I think his athleticism is quite good, but I think he's still too raw to be starting at any point. And we talked about earlier in the group chat about Saliba, but there's still no indication that he would still be this rock at the back that would magically propel us into a top 4, top 6 position, despite what he's doing at Marseille and when he did it in Nice last year. So I don't think it would be better. I think you would try that out in like an FA Cup match. You would try it out in Europa League, but we don't have Europa League now, so we don't have that option. But in the further future, no, I wouldn't want to see that either. I think we could do a hell of a lot better than that for sure. So.
John Anton Klein, this is a good one, says, what is the single biggest mistake we've made this transfer window? Great show so far. It depends on your
There's still the opportunity we can screw this up.
Yeah. I honestly think that as much as I like the contract extension for Xhaka, and I've been a big proponent of the guy, I think that the lack of a midfield signing, if it doesn't happen, is the biggest mistake that we've made. I'm happy with Odegaard and all that, but in terms of that holding kind of midfield position, the fact that if we don't strengthen that, and if we don't strengthen it and instead gave Xhaka an extension like he had, maybe a year or something, but like this is a long-term deal for the guy. And as much as I rate him, I don't know if I think that was a big mistake. When I say rate him, you know what I mean. You know my thoughts on Xhaka.
Yeah, they're
ready?
wrong.
Can I throw it?
Yes, probably.
Ian says, people saying owners are backing Arteta with 130 million, but how can they truly back him if the club is self-sustaining and the money coming from the club is from itself? Mike, what do you think about that?
Well, look, I mean, people talk about the owners spending money, but if the club is self-sustaining, that the club can be self-sustaining and spend big money on transfers when we're a profitable club, as we were up until about 2 seasons ago. Now that we're running a deficit, now that our income for COVID reasons and for us being absolute pants and pony reasons and not getting television money that people in 4th place and 3rd place in European competitions get, them spending this kind of money is actually coming from ownership. There's a rule. Well, there used to be a rule in FFP that you couldn't lose more than a certain amount over 3 years to keep clubs from running at a deficit that was mostly from player transfers, and we're actually entering that kind of territory right now. If our net spend ends up being, because we can't sell players, if it ends up being well over £100 million, and on top of that, from non-player trading, we end up losing 30, 40, 50, 60 million pounds. You can't say that they didn't spend money. Our owners have never been against spending money on players. This isn't the first transfer window that we spent money where it was needed and been not afraid to plunk maybe even too much money down for certain players like Ben White and Pepe and Ramsdale. That's never been the issue. It's been the wisdom of how they do that and basically how they manage the players already on the payroll. And so, yeah, I think he's being backed. I think they're getting the new players that they wanted. I think Arteta's probably. I don't think Arteta's said, "Hey, I want to go get Basuma or Camavinga or Locatelli or any of these people." And the issue has been that the ownership is like, "No, we prefer to haggle over £8 million or £4 million with Granit Xhaka, and then end up giving him the money instead of Roma." I don't think that's the conversation that was having. So I think he's been backed. I just don't know that. They've just mismanaged the relationships and the contracts, so we're ending up with people on this team who are crying out on social media to leave and aren't going to be given their wish. So,
I agree. I mean, the Maitland-Niles tweet is just look. It's just another day at Arsenal for me. It's just another incident. Like, I don't agree with him doing it, but I mean, it's not new, is it? It's not surprising. So it's what it is. Divian says, would it be really bad if Josh is the sort of general manager? It's his money, and maybe that persuades him to spend more of it. Drew, I'm looking at your face.
Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't be bad because he'd be coming into an arena that he just doesn't have the knowledge base that he has a history with that he does in the US. I don't think he could do that job. Being a GM type is hard enough. Without understanding the kind of markets you're working with, the kind of the players, every facet of it, I think it would be an absolute disaster. And my worry is that that's how, if we were to sack Edu, I could see us it just being him and then Arteta. I could actually see us not going out and getting a director of football, for example, or a technical director.
When you have owners that are the GM, there's a couple examples in U.S. sports to look at. One is Jerry Jones of the Dallas Cowboys. Another, you could say, kind of, they may have had a GM, but Mark Cuban of Dallas Mavericks.
Glenn Sather as well.
But Jerry Jones took over that team and instantly built a great winner. And then when everybody aged out of that, coaches and players, Jerry Jones tried to fill the gap by making these massive signings and bringing star names and spending money and always try to be that guy. And it just failed. It's like it's the situation that I could see happening if Josh Kroenke was in that position, because you got a guy who knows business, doesn't know football, or was born into business, doesn't know football. In this case, real football. And maybe he'd be more likely to throw money at it, but I don't know that he'd be throwing money at it the right way. And he's got to cede control, but still write checks. And frankly, I think that's what they've done. They're just ceding the control to the wrong people.
Yeah.
John says, how long will Arteta remain in the job, in your opinion?
I think.
What time is it?
Yeah. What time is the window? I think that it's a very good question, and I think that the next match, I think, is Norwich, is going to be very determinative over what the future looks like for Arteta at this club. If we don't get a result, if we don't score a goal there and we go down 1-2 goals or something like that again, I mean, it's possibly imminent in my opinion. But obviously I think that once this window's closed, he's going to get the opportunity. I had him before all of the shenanigans this season, that they were at least going to try to get him until January and reassess. But I think with these, and we were on the podcast, and I said these first 3-4 games are going to be extremely important for him. If he doesn't do well, the pressure is going to start building, and we're at that point where it's almost at a breaking point for Arteta, I think. And if there isn't a microscope on him from up above, there is going to need to be very soon, and there very well may be in the next match.
We'll see. I still have the hot take that I don't think it matters where we are in the league. I don't think he's going anywhere. I really can't see him getting rid of him, to be honest. But we'll see.
You don't think if we actually drop points or lose to Norwich and Burnley,
you think he still has a job?
And then's the derby. If we beat Norwich and Burnley and then don't show up at the derby, many people would say that should be his head. I don't think that it would be. But if we get 2 points or less out of those 3 games,
it's bad.
It's got to be the Monday. It's got to be the day after the derby.
It's got to be the day before. Do you know what I mean?
It should be, but that would be if our ownership actually understood what the derby meant, that he should be sacked before the press conference after the game if that's what happens. But
what argument is Arteta giving them now for why he should keep his job? What does he do? What is he showing them?
He'll be saying that I haven't got my players, and that we were against Man City and Chelsea, and that we've got Partey, Gabriel, White, all of them are out. Lacazette and Aubameyang weren't available for Brentford. That's what he'll say. So but then you only have that argument. You only have that argument until I'm not saying that. I'm telling you what I think he was going to say.
Yeah, you only have that. You only have that argument until you don't anymore, and then fine. Yeah. Maybe that's so. To answer the question, how long will Arteta remain in the job? I think until that T gets crossed. Once he has his players back and he loses that excuse, they say, "Where the hell is this team going?" Hopefully, if they're competent, and if he doesn't have an answer, then you got to let him go.
But real fast, the issue is at no point does the football season happen under optimal circumstances for the entirety of the season. So what Arteta is showing you with that possible answer is that I cannot perform for 95% of an actual season because I need optimal circumstances to do my job, in which case no one should be employed in any job in any realm of the world at any point.
Right, and you can't just keep moving the goalposts whenever there's some failure in your job. You can't say, well, I didn't have Partey and blah, blah, blah. Oh, well, now it was COVID. Oh, well, now, they're tired and we just came back from international break.
Yeah, my answer to that is David Moyes has West Ham in second. That's, that would be my answer to that question.
And David Moyes had West Ham finish ahead of us last season and got United in Europe and in the Europa League with a squad, which is good, but on paper it's not better than Arsenal. So they just know what they're about.
Jesse Lingard.
Correct. He has a
Jesse Lingard.
And he has a system that fits the players. It's been simplified to maximize their best players. Look at what it was with Miguel Antonio, who 3-4 years ago, no one would have taken a punt on him, and now he's arguably one of the best center forwards England has out of a group of however many.
Jamaica has Drew, because he could be.
That's true.
I think he now.
He's He has dual
has,
nationality.
he has
He does.
declared, hasn't he? Yeah.
Oh, did he? Okay, well, there you go. But either
I'm
way,
pretty sure, yeah.
but look what he's done with that, just as an example. And they keep buying players that fit Moyes' system as well. So clearly they're being more well run. So yeah, I think, as John said, you can't keep moving the goalpost to, well, I need this to succeed. Well, eventually you might get there, but you still have to do something when you don't have the best case scenario. That's like saying that generals in the armed forces can only do their job as generals when everything's at max capacity. Well, they probably shouldn't be generals. You know what I mean? Like, it's nonsense. So yeah.
Oh, here's a fun one. Mike Poria says, why did Arteta let Saliba go when we definitely have a lot of problems in defence? Is he really worse than Marie or Holding?
I don't think that the Saliba issues come down to talent as much as they'd like to talk about it. I think it comes down to personality, maturity, lack thereof. Clearly, he's talented enough. Again, he's made what, a team of the week, along with Guendouzi in Ligue 1.
Of course, that happened this week. Of course.
Oh, it's almost like the entirety of France is just like getting back at us for not having like the French core anymore, and they just want to stick the needle. But yeah, I mean, he's talented. Premier League's not the same as Ligue 1, so there's a lot of, but clearly he should be at a level where at least we can be bringing him up and having him as a third or fourth choice rather than what we have now. And that just tells me that there has to have been some issues. I mean, we've seen evidence of his immaturity from a few years ago. I don't know that you can hold that against somebody for the rest of their lives. But I just think that more behind the scenes happened probably between him and Arteta, but that's happened with enough different people now that you have to start looking at Arteta, because it's happened with Guendouzi, and Guendouzi seems like a bit of a punk to me. So like, I can see that happening. It seemingly has happened with Mainsley, where, now he's suddenly decided that he wants to play fullback, but yet he's being thrown on in the 71st minute of a game that's been lost by that point, which is almost worse than not putting him in the game at all, as far as showing the guy some respect. So, there's just a lot of personality clashes here, and Arteta seems to be the common denominator for them, and he's just not putting up with it. So, Saliba's not gone yet, but he's not coming back as long as Arteta's here.
No. I mean, I was thinking while you were talking about Saliba thing and the French team of the week, just to kind of sum up for Arsenal fans the last 72 hours of what's happened at Arsenal. We've lost 5-0 against Manchester City, in which we played Kolasinac for his second successive game in a row, and we played Martin Odegaard as a number 8. William Saliba and Matteo Guendouzi have played the game of their lives for Marseille and earned themselves a position in the team of the week. Mesut Ozil has tweeted out saying, trust the process. Maitland-Niles has gone onto his Instagram page and posted a story saying, just let me go, basically. We've got Spurs putting a €30 million bid for Emerson, who desperately Arsenal fans were pining after for months and months. Eddie Nketiah has had a move to Crystal Palace fall apart because Arsenal wouldn't accept anything less than £20 million. They're now going for Odsonne Edouard as a striker. To go a little bit further than that, I think we've seen some tweets suggesting, obviously, that the ownership could be getting rid of one of our executives at the club. We've
given Granit Xhaka an extension.
Well, obviously that happened a while ago.
But honestly, it's almost
sent off.
It's a red card.
Yeah, we gave him an extension. He got padded on the ass. This padding on the ass, is that part of the add-ons?
Yeah, I think that was part of his. That was part of his contract. So,
maybe that removes some.
And it's all being documented on camera.
But here's the funniest part about all of this.
We started Kolasinac for 2 games in a row. That a guy that we couldn't want further away from the club, and apparently now he'll be the captain for the Norwich game. Probably.
We also have the perfect meme now with Pablo Mari and Arteta. So I love that meme. Go on,
the funniest part about this is that if you were to come up with if you were Kroenke, and you were like, I want to start acting as though in a way that pisses the fans off in the most highest possible sense and in the most succinct, perfect way.
He's doing a great job.
He's doing I couldn't think of anything better to do to piss the fans off more than the actions.
It's almost like literally, do you remember? Now I'm only on season 1, so don't spoil this. but
He eats the green eggs and the ham.
no, he's literally doing what the owner of AFC Richmond wanted to do when she took over the club, which is just to ruin it from within by doing the most inept things.
Yeah.
Except it seems as though everything is coming together in the most wonderful way for them, though. And Arsenal, it's just literally doing exactly what I forget what her name is now, but the
Yeah, it's like it's almost like it's really interesting. I was trying to think what else could have been. The only other thing I think that would have been bad is if they announced like a Willian contract extension.
Oh yeah, I was just about to say that. So that's the only good thing the best thing that's happening at Arsenal right now is that our worst player actually decided to leave. that's how bad it is.
They decided to terminate his contract. That's the best thing that we've done so far, I feel like.
Masterclass from Edu and from Dick.
It's impressive. It's impressive, really, how
and from VC.
I'm just writing out a list of all the things that have happened to Arsenal in the last 72 hours.
And I hit myself in the head real hard, and now I'm not seeing so great.
Oh man, yeah.
You know what's funny, real fast. Before we go to the next question, I was talking to Josh at Yama. He said that he literally sat there and was thinking that this has got to be like a piss take from Edu and Arteta. Like it has to be intentionally bad at this point for reasons that we don't, for what John is saying. And I sat there and I was just like, you know what?
I can't argue with that.
If it's like April 1st, it's going to be like, we were just kidding.
If it's gotten to the point where people are sitting here legitimately considering the fact that this could just be like some massive inside job by two people and we've been like completely had, then you know we're in the bad spell at the minute. So
I mean, it honestly, there's as much evidence to say that this is purposeful than that it's incompetence.
Because incompetent, like if you're bad at something, you do the same thing 10 times. You're going to accidentally do it right one of those 10 times.
Yeah,
and we're not seeing that with Arsenal right now. They're not getting anything right.
I was just waiting. I think
at any level,
the real evidence would have been if Arteta came after that match and said, I don't know. I think we really had him for most of the match. I think that they put in, there's a lot of passion. There's a lot of passion and fight.
The better team lost today. That would have.
This is just a bad simulation. That's what we're in, guys.
And if anyone, and I think the chat knows the tone of the four of us well enough. If anyone thinks that we think this is funny, please don't mistake my.
We're laughing. If we don't laugh, we're going to collectively just start.
This is gallows humor.
Don't mistake the gallows humor and the laughing so you don't cry type of situation, because that is all I have at this point, Arsenalistically.
Because what's the alternative? What, we just start shouting and abusing the players?
Well, and that's the thing. Like I literally, and I mentioned this to a couple people. I want to do a podcast where and not in any kind of a piss take kind of format. I want to get a licensed therapist or psychologist who happens to know football. Like
sorry, this is where we're at, and it's not necessarily.
I want to do that because I honestly don't know how to process a lot of this stuff. So I'm, I mean, look, I have a family, I have a life, I have a career, I have friends. Some of them even aren't involved in Arsenal. Some friends of mine, but most are, and I don't want my relationships to be affected by this. So I need to be able to get healthy with, and I know the instant thing is we'll turn Twitter off and turn social media off.
It's not that easy.
I'm running a cancer charity that relies on social media right now. So I can't even do that if I wanted to, but I want to know how to process it. And I don't want, a therapist that's going to say the obvious thing, which is, you should really de-emphasize this as being such an important part of your life, because that's tone deaf to the whole,
realistic.
Right.
Yeah. So I want a therapist me up. People are like, it's just football. It's like, it's not just football. You don't understand.
It's not. And I remember I was watching Man City. I woke up at 6 a.m. to watch that game. And then my wife wakes up and she walks by and she's like, how's it going? And I didn't answer her. And then she looked at the screen and saw 4-0 at that point. And she's like, oh. And then she just kept, she knew, don't talk to me. This is not good right now.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking this is it's not just football. It's this is something that we are passionate about, that we get up, that we spend our time, that we think about, that we it takes up a big portion of our lives, our emotions and our thoughts. It's not just football. And
no, it's not. But the one thing I am not going to do is, and I'm not going to track into the category of people, and God bless them, this is how they process. This is how I process. I'm not going to rant and rave and let my blood pressure go up significantly and do it whilst calling out other people for not doing that. Like, look,
Everyone deals with it differently. Everyone
call
deals
me
with
whatever you want.
stressors.
I have to laugh at the situation. It doesn't mean that I think it's funny. It doesn't mean that I'm amused by it. It certainly doesn't help me in any kind of a personal, professional, or podcastial way. It's just
I'm with
it's just the way that you like. If you don't want to just literally lie in bed, like just pounding the pillows over your, to get your anger out, or worse, take your anger out on somebody else. You just.
I was just laughing. When the fifth goal went in, I just started cracking up. I just started cracking up, and my wife came in, saw now it's 5-0, and I'm laughing my ass off on the couch, and it didn't understand.
It's like I mean, God forbid, it's like those homeless people on the street who are just laughing hysterically, and you're like, what are they laughing at so much?
Yeah,
and it's just because I mean, I'm not comparing our situation to the plight.
I was wondering where you're going with this.
Home and their family, but not yet anyway. But
I get what you're saying. It's saying, how can life get any worse? Like, you were laughing. How are we in this situation?
It's a tragic comedy at this point.
It is a tragic comedy. That's what Arsenal, and that's what I said earlier. And we come kind of full circle. Is that it's genuinely horrible to be an Arsenal fan right now. It is absolutely horrible to be an Arsenal fan. So, oh man, oh god, what did you just tweet us? What have you sent us? What tweet have you sent us to? Barcelona having an agreement with a striker. Oh
my god! It's Eddie and Kenya to Barcelona.
I don't know, that account has 235,000 followers. So it must be true.
I fully agree. I fully think it's going to end up being Oba, which we've all talked about anyway.
Who?
The Aubameyang.
Aubameyang.
That someone's going to come in for him late in the window if they need a
We've
striker.
got 10 minutes left, guys. If that turns out to happen, let's just live in this. Let's do some group therapy, as Mark said in the chat.
Sure, go ahead.
If Aubameyang goes to Barcelona
for £6 million, £6 million, he'll go there. If our transfer history and about selling our players is going to anything to
we wanted 20 million, we got 6.
Yeah.
Right. So come on, raw reactions.
Nketiah's not leaving for anything less than 20, but Aubameyang can leave for 6.5. But look, I mean, to get out from under his wages at this point. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
Well, what are we losing with Aubameyang?
Well, we're losing a striker.
Okay, but that does what?
Well, the thing is that
we don't have anyone giving him any service, so it's not. He's useless right now.
John, I hear you. I'm just saying, if he goes, we have to replace him. Like, you can't have Lacazette and Balogun.
And Gabriel, Martinelli, and
that's
Eddie.
not enough.
I know it's not. I know it's not, Tom.
So maybe we hijacked the
John's not saying it's enough. John's just saying
it's not enough, John.
I'm just looking at this is the conversation Arteta and Edu are having with Josh.
Yeah, if he gets sold, we get to finally see Xhaka as captain again.
So someone put this in the chat, and actually I'll find it. We talked about this at Yama yesterday, and then I filtered it into the WhatsApp for TGT.
Yeah.
That
Yama mentions are going to make today.
You could
see said this.
You could see the club getting Origi on loan to replace him because he's tactically versatile and he'll fit the fact that
Origi.
Yes, I would not be surprised if we did that.
Breakdown on Divock Origi.
Oh my God!
I don't know, Ben. My son wins every FIFA game that he plays with Wissam Ben Yedder. So we should really. I mean, the guy's amazing on FIFA. So. He could probably be. Where's he? Monaco. We can get.
Well, we're bringing back. Everyone. It seems like the Premier League's bringing back legends. So I guess we'll get like Yaya Sanogo or
Bentner.
or Shamak.
So bad. But I mean, if Oba left, I mean, yeah, I think we'd have to replace him with a longer term option because, like I said, clearly walking on a free next summer, right? So you have to look for who we're bringing in now that can compete and B start next summer. But do you think we would
free next summer too?
Stop it, because there can be people that would believe you, Mike, and I'm holding you personally responsible when that happens.
I love that they've tweeted out that it's just a striker with no context. That's so good.
I mean, it's smart.
It's smart.
Yeah, it's smart because they know they'll get clicks. There'll be reactions, but. Yeah, I just kind of feel like if I'm fine, I've said this forever. I'm fine with him leaving. I would be curious to see how we would actually solve that, because every striker we were linked to either went somewhere else or extended somewhere else before they were
Calvert-Lewin. We'll give you Niketi, or no? Who was it?
Is he worth 70 million pounds to you? Not for me.
Yeah.
Like that would be worse than White. That would be worse than Pepe.
Yeah, but
I would
Pepe wasn't worth that much to me.
Million on Calvert-Lewin. I would absolutely.
Really?
Yes, I would.
Oh, no.
Absolutely. I think that's a great investment. I think 70 million pounds on a
like
him is great.
I was pushing. I was positive on the Tammy Abraham train a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, for half the price.
I would have paid 44.
I know. I know. You and I talk about all the time. Like, should I care about what we're spending? And I probably should, because it's not my money. It's not coming out of my pocket. But I should also care about how we're running our business if we're spending 70 million pounds on Dominic.
You spent 50 million on a defender. We might as well. We spent 7 million on Pepe. We might as well spend 120 million on Tammy Abraham.
Thank you, Alex, for the donation. I want to thank all of you for being there, because it's not easy to go through this time. Arsenal cancelling the US tour hit me hard, and now we're 3 games in. Alex, thank you for tuning in, and I hope that we provided you some proper football therapy for you this evening.
Alex, head over to us after this. We're going to do another hour of ridiculousness. And
there you go. We've got, Mike, I'm going to let you plug that in a sec. We're going to wrap things up very swiftly, because I know that there are people who have got pods to start and lives to get on with and tears to shed. So let's quickly move into that period. But before I do need to reluctantly get a prediction from you. It's not for a game, because we don't have one, because it's the international break. I just want a number. 2 numbers specifically. I want a number of outs and I want a number of ins in tomorrow's deadline day. You don't have to give me names. I just want 2 numbers. I'm going to vent for a little bit more, so you've got some time to think about it, just while you're thinking about your predictions. Let's go to, in the chat box, Aditya says DCL scores goals for 1 season, and everyone is like, he's top class. I don't even understand. I think it's been a lot longer than just 1 season, but Mark says, you think Edu could convince Messi to hand in a transfer request? Tyne Cub says DCL just pulled out of the England squad with an injury. Maybe there really is a transfer on the horizon. I mean, that would be hilarious if that was the case, but I very much doubt it. Benjamin says, need at least 4 more ins and all Deadwoods out. 0 and 0, says the Arsenal Misfit. 2 ins and 4 outs, says MIL, and 3 out, 1 in, says Alex. Okay, let's get your predictions. Mike, we'll start with you. How many in, how many out, and plug your show?
1 kind of surprising yet relatively unimpressive in, and 3 underwhelming outs. Loans. And then, in about 3 minutes, we're getting started over at the Gooners podcast. We got Sophie coming on. We have Ryan Rocastle coming on. Owen and I will be there. And vote for Tom and vote for Gooners versus Cancer at for the FCAs. We're sending out tweets at the Gooners pod and at Gooners v Cancer. But we want to go to a banquet where we both get to celebrate each other's successes.
Yeah, just for a really cheap price.
Half a bottle of wine is included.
Honestly, oh man, I don't care if I get with it or not. I'm criticizing that. That's a joke. In terms of what is it? I forgot what I was asking you to do. Predictions, ins and outs. Johns, thank you so much, mate, for coming on. And ins and out prediction.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on. It's been nice and cathartic, which I feel like we've said that about podcasts we've been on way too often. We shouldn't need catharsis 24/7 with this club, but that's what being an Arsenal fan appears to be from now on. So, and has been for a while. So here we are. Ins and outs. I don't think we're getting anyone in. Maybe one, and it'll be like some deadline day thing, just like I guess Arteta was, when he was signed here. So I would say 3 out and none in, maybe 1.
Fair enough. I love that confidence,
covering all bases.
Drew, thanks.
How was that all bases? Maybe we'll get someone in. Maybe
it was a very Bell-esque prediction.
Yeah. My file is not closed.
God willing.
Go on, Drew.
We're about to see a man actually break right here.
No. The file always gets me. Every time he tweets it,
the file.
I laugh
It's like,
every single time it's tweeted. I can't.
I was
Anyway,
imagining like a genuine filing cabinet.
that's what I mean. He like takes out, he starts flipping through it.
Like,
It's like,
face, just
yeah.
putting it
It's like,
on.
wait, hold on. Let me look for Ozil.
It's just so bad. I think we'll do 2 out. I'll even name them. I think Maitland-Niles will go, and I think Nketiah will go. Who even knows? Like I said, I pray we get a midfielder in. That's the logic dictates we'd get a midfielder in, but at most, I think we're going to do 1. I'd be shocked if we do 2. I know people are, mooting the Aouar Guimaraes double swap. I can't ever see that happening, especially tomorrow. Especially with Guimaraes not being one of the players that Leon wants to sell in the first place. So yeah, that's what I'll go for. 1 and 2 out. So, and thanks for having me as always, of course.
Hold on. Barca are looking at a new number 9 to be signed before the end of the market. Fab. Oh, big fab twin.
There you go.
They're going to get Dominic Calvert-Lewin.
They're not going to get Nketiah on loan with an option of £50 million. Raul says, Wolves, if we run out of Sanchez on loan, please show Edu and Arteta the door. Man, I'm not even keen on it. I mean, if you want to get a player that's going to play your 5 games a season and spend the rest on the injury table.
Well, it's not just that. It's just the Jorge Mendes connection, clearly. So
we already have a player like that with Partey.
I'm very conscious that Mike needs to run off for his podcast, so I'm going to let him do that. Thank you so much,
to the
guys.
Gooners Pod. Thank you, Tom, for having us.
No worries, bro.
Looking forward to the wedding.
Yes, all 3 of you are coming.
The live podcast on the wedding.
What have I done? Thank you for tuning in, guys. Please do drop a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you're new and here. Those notifications turned on so you never miss a show. Massive thank you to Mike, John, and Drew. As always, see you soon. And as always, up the Arsenal.